All right, so let's look at number 2 here. A little bit of a trickier function. So start with domain. Domain is our x values, how far left and right the graph goes. We can see an arrow here on the end. It's obviously going up, but it's also going up and to the right. It's just going right really slowly. So it is going right forever towards infinity. And as we move to the left, this graph stops going left right here at this point. And in our domain, we're concerned about the x value, so that leftmost x value is at -3. So the domain goes from -3 to infinity. All right, next we've got zeros. Remember, zeros and x-intercepts. Basically interchangeable, so it's where it crosses the x-axis, and we cross the x-axis at 2 different places. So we cross once at x equals -2, and again at x equals +4. There's the intercepts as ordered pairs. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. It crosses the y-axis just at one place, at 0, -1. The main thing I want to talk about is, again, increasing, decreasing constant. That's where people generally struggle the most. And remember, we're using our x values only for this section. So remember, we read a graph like a book from left to right. So let's start at the leftmost point, which is this here, and move our way. As we move from left to right, this first section, we're going downhill. So this is our decreasing section. Question is, where is it decreasing from? We use the x value, so it starts decreasing right here, x equals -3, and stops at -1. Always use parentheses when we do these intervals. Then we continue along the graph from left to right. This next section right here in the middle. It's the first time we've encountered this. That is a constant section because it's not going up, it's not going down, it's flatlining. And it is constant from -1 to +2. Remember, it's the x values. And again, this is why we use parentheses. You'll notice we used the number -1 in both intervals, but since we've used parentheses, that means we're not including that value in the interval. So that's why we always use parentheses for increasing and decreasing in constant. And this last section is obviously going up from left to right. So that's our increasing section. Starts to increase at 2. And does it ever stop increasing? It's got an arrow there, so that means it is going up forever. So it's increasing from 2 to infinity. And then finally, in behavior. In behavior, as x approaches positive infinity, that implies that we're looking at the right end of this graph. So find the right end of this graph where x is approaching infinity. There's our right arrow. So that's our right end. What's the right end doing as far as the y values are concerned? It's going up forever. So we're going to put positive infinity. And then finally, this other in behavior is the left end because x is approaching negative infinity. So we look over here. Do we have a left arrow? We have a left dot, but really we need a left arrow. To be considered for x to be approaching negative infinity means we are moving to the left forever. And we just don't have that in this case. So there is no left end behavior in this case. So we're going to put NA for the left end. I would encourage you to go ahead and try example number 3 on your own. I'm going to go over some of the answers here in just about 5 seconds. So first off, domain and range are both all real numbers. Range, nobody really has a problem with that because it's obviously going down and it's obviously going up forever. But it's also, you've got to keep this in mind. This arrow is going down, but it's also really, really, really slowly. I'm obviously exaggerating how quickly it's moving to the right and left, but it is moving left and right forever. So that's where I got all real numbers for both of those. There's the x-intercepts and y-intercepts. There's some disagreement on where that's crossing the y-axis. Some people think it's at negative 2.5 or negative 2, but as long as you understand the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, we're good there. Increasing and decreasing. Let's go over this real quick together. So remember, we read it from left to right. So this is, we start here. This section right here, we're going uphill. So that's an increasing section. So it starts increasing from where? It's coming, remember we use the x values. So even though it's going up, it's coming from the left, and the leftmost x value is negative infinity. It doesn't stop increasing until we get to negative 4. And again, that's the x coordinate right there. All right, and then that middle section, we don't have a constant section here, but we do have a decreasing section, because that section is going downhill from left to right. And it's decreasing from negative 4, and it looks like, and again, this one's close, but it looks like it stops decreasing at about x equals 2. So we do not have a constant section, but you will notice we have another increasing section. What I was talking about earlier. So you can have more than one increasing, you can have more than one decreasing section. Normally what we do is we write a big U for union, because there's 2 increasing sections. So this section, where's it increasing from? It's increasing from 2 to positive infinity. All right, and then finally in behavior, we've got our right end, x approaches positive infinity. We have a right arrow. It is going up. So that means y is approaching positive infinity. Then we're going to look at the left end as x approaches negative infinity. There's the left arrow. That left arrow is going down. So y is approaching negative infinity. I'm going to encourage you to pause about the 8.5 minute mark. I'm going to show the answers through 4 through 6. I don't have a graph for 3, so I won't do 3. Just a couple of notes on number 4, the y-intercept. So you can see you can't really tell where that is visually. So what you would have to do is, if they give you an equation, which they do in this case, you'd have to actually go ahead and plug in 0 for x. Because you know when you're trying to find the y-intercept, x is always 0. So we're going to plug in 0 for x and evaluate that, and we get negative radical 2. So that's where I got the y-intercept. And as far as increasing, decreasing goes on this one. Decreasing, a lot of people miss this because they put negative infinity right here, because they say, oh, it's going down. And that's right, it is going down. But going down is what tells us it is decreasing. Remember, we use the x values. So the leftmost x value is at negative 2, and there is no rightmost x value, because it's going right forever. All right, and then number 5, here are the answers. Again, a couple tricky ones again for zeros and x-intercepts. You really can't tell by the graph. So what you have to do to find the 0 and the x-intercept, if you recall, y is always equal to 0 for the x-intercept. So up here, remember j of x is the same thing as y, essentially. So we set that equation equal to 0 and then solve it. And we just add 4 to both sides and then divide both sides by 3. And you get 4/3, or you can write that as 1.3. Repeating would be fine as well. It's only increasing. If you look at it, it's only going up from left to right. So it's not going downhill at all, so that's why there's no answer for decreasing here. One note I want to point out, the range. A lot of people get this mixed up. We always write the smallest value first. So you should put negative infinity, since it's a smaller value, than -3 first when you write the range.